There was no countdown this time? Didn't there used to be a countdown?
I don't know.
Oh. Anyway.
Wow.
Yay, Left Hand of Darkness.
Yay, my book is so boring. Turn the library.
Yes, it is. Hey, Pam! Do you have video, Pam? Ah, there she is.
No audio. I see your microphone is off.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Hold on.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you now.
I just have to click the little settings button in it, I guess. Okay.
Hi.
You're now here.
Hi.
We are live. We didn't know if you were coming, so we decided to just get started. So we're glad you're here. Yay!
You didn't read though, right?
Uh-oh, are you there? I'm not hearing you.
Because the microphone's right here, so I have to like speak into the.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay, there we go.
Did you get to read any of the book?
I didn't because I thought, oh, I'll just swing by the library and pick it up, but they were closed on Friday.
Oh.
I told her to come by and say hi anyway.
Yeah.
Well.
I have a brand new laptop, so I wanted to test it and figure out how it. I mean, Google always changes little tiny details, and I'm like, I don't know what to press. I don't know. I do like Ursula Le Guin of what I've read of hers. So, what did you guys think of the book? It was in high school, and it was. I can't remember the title. I can go Google it probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like seriously, I've only read like one Ursula Le Guin story, and it actually really inspired like a project short story that I wrote in the English class that I read it in. I think it was my creative writing class in high school. I can't remember.
Cool.
It was a million years ago.
Yeah, I read one short story of hers in high school or college called "The Ones That Walk Away from Omelis." That was the only other thing I had read of hers.
What was it about? Like, what was the? Because I remember what the
utopian town where everything is perfect except for the one kid who has to get locked in the closet.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazingly dystopian and.
Yeah.
It sounds disturbing, is what it sounds.
Yeah.
That's very good.
The story I read of hers, I'm pretty sure it was Le Guin, was no one spoke or something like that. Like it was a society without spoken language.
Okay.
I think, and I thought I wrote a story that was like, what if it was the opposite, and what if it was like written language? Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I can't. I wish I had that like document of the story I wrote, but it's long gone. I mourn the passing of my old like hard drives and notebooks and stuff that like to get lost in the bustle of life.
Yeah.
You know.
Cool. Well, I think we should get started on talking about this book. It's making faces down there.
I don't know. So Jessica and I were talking a little bit before we went live, and so two things. One, apparently this is number 6. And they're all like, they're told in the same. They're not necessarily like sequential, but told in the same world.
Right.
And I had such a hard time, such a hard time trying to keep track of this story and who was the narrator at the time because I think it switched a few times, and
Uh,
Yeah,
I kind of wonder if it's the function of like this is her style, and because it started at the beginning, because I'm a very order oriented person, maybe I would have understood it more, but I was just like, I don't even know who's talking right now.
I'm not sure because I haven't read the other books, but it seems like they are just stories of maybe different worlds within this alliance.
Yeah.
I don't know that we would have understood anything more about this particular world, which was, I think, the confusing part,
Hmm.
disorienting part, is that you didn't. They were talking about being in Kemmer, and I couldn't figure out at first like what was the city and what was the country and what was the planet. But once I like got all that straight, then I was like, okay, I actually like understand what's going on. And they had the like report that explained in detail what their whole like sexual functioning thing was, and
Yeah.
then I was totally on board for the rest of the book. At first, I was like, this is way too many like made up words and
Yeah.
things, but then it all like came together because you guys know I'm like a big world building snob. That like if the world is novel, I'm like I hate this book so much. It doesn't make any sense.
well, maybe don't read the 6th book in this series if you want
No,
to build a
this
world.
I felt like the world that she built was very internally coherent and very. She put a lot of thought and planning into it about how everything worked, and I didn't find anything that was totally illogical or whatever. So, which is pretty good for a
So I
alien.
should read the last 100 pages.
The last one, how much did you not read?
I read 2/3 of it
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
was like,
Oh.
that's
Yeah,
how.
you should finish it.
Okay, I'll finish it.
It's good.
Do we have like a list of discussion questions that we could
Oh,
Yeah, I'll put them in
like
the
broad topic discussion?
Yes. There you go.
Okay, awesome.
yeah. So good world building, confused reader.
Um, once I understood what was going on, I really liked it. So I had read this like probably 8 years ago, and I remembered nothing from when I read it the first time. So that was not helpful at all. But no, it was just I've found myself getting really interested, surprisingly, in like the politics, but also with the whole kind of issue of face, or what they called Shifrith for the book.
That one I never got. What is that? And I saw that on one of the blogs that I
Yeah,
was reading.
it's like pride or like face, like saving face.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I'm very concerned about that. So the whole dilemma in the book is like the main narrator doesn't want to bring down his ship and risk all their lives if he's not sure that they will be safe. So he needs some government, either in Karhide or in the other country that starts with an O, or Guin, to make a public announcement saying this ship, when it comes down, will be safe. But nobody is willing to do that because if they say that and then it's just this is just a crazy guy and there's no such thing as aliens, now they've just humiliated
yeah.
as a government by saying we believe in aliens and this alien ship when it comes down will be totally safe with us. And so nobody's
It's a
willing
big
to do that. And so the envoy just has to keep going and trying to convince them that he's really an alien. So it's like I love that whole back and forth dilemma that like who do you trust, and like when he first goes to Orgarine, he is like thank God I'm in like an orderly society for once. Like there, that's a little bit boring, but like everyone's very logical, and then you find out that there's basically like a mafia that's running the entire country, and then they like put.
Oh my
Like,
god.
Flavor
That's why it's so organized, because it's literally an organization. Like,
Right, exactly.
oh my gosh.
Yes.
Hello,
So
and
it's so
welcome.
great.
And how are you? And kind of like when in The Walking Dead, when they got to the one in one season when with the governor Do you guys watch The
Never.
Walking Dead?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, wait, I
No,
need
no.
to not pinch my... Okay. Well, it's... Well, the first question in this link was how much has her parents' background as anthropologists affected her writing? Like a lot, like a
Yeah, that was
lot.
one of the
Like
things when I was
her
talking to
whole. It
Chris
sounded
about it.
like it's all about anthropology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I really liked, even though it tended to be a little bit confusing at first, I liked that there were occasional chapters from Estreven's perspective from his journal, because when you just have Genly, or however you say his name, you get his perspective and you're like, okay, like I'm tracking, like you're making progress with this government, and like this is all the things you're doing, and you like really trust this one guy, and then you go to Estreven's perspective and he's like, this dude is so naive. He has no idea that there's an entire mafia controlling this country, and the guy that he's staying with is that, and he's like in danger for his life right now. And so if you didn't get that perspective, you would just be like, what happened? I don't understand why he's suddenly in a forced labor camp. But
Oh,
so you kind of needed that out, like you needed the anthropological perspective of this envoy who's trying to figure out like how does this society function, and like who can I trust, and then you
it's
got
basically
who's like,
Star
this
Trek.
is completely wrong.
Yeah. It's like the whole point of Star Trek. Like when they go to a new universe or a new planet, they're like, okay, we have to be very careful they don't know we exist. So they get all like maked up, and like from what I've seen of the one with Sir Patrick, what's his face?
Next generation.
Picard. The one with the Next Generation. I just
That I have
slammed my desk.
Yeah, and so in this book, they have previously sent a group like that just blended in and tried to, learn the culture, so that when they sent this envoy, he would kind of know the society and know all this stuff, and that he could get out himself and say, I'm an alien, I need you, I want you to join this interplanetary alliance, because then he would feel like he had went in knowing a little bit about them, but he still was, there was still so much that he didn't understand about the machinations of the governments and the mafia type thing.
That kind of thing is a behind the scenes thing that people don't talk about. Like, it's a club. It's exclusive. And like almost every society is like that. There's not a lot of transparency in society in general. Depending on I mean like in broad, really like society as like a human concept. Society is not transparent, and that's the whole point of the science of anthropology, is to figure it out.
Right, and that's why it's so interesting when he goes to this second country, because in the first one it's like they have a monarchy and they're ruled by this king who's basically insane, and so he's like, okay, now I'm in a place that actually has like a government, and like they're very transparent, and like everyone can get a job, and and then you find out that no, it's the transparency that they have is completely fake, because there's all these deals and stuff being worked out, and the communications are all being censored and monitored, and but
Big Brother is watching.
You think that everything is like super transparent.
It's just so super organized that you don't see the strings behind the curtain being pulled,
Yeah, so I guess it raises the question as far as anthropology then, is like, to what extent can you ever really fully know a society or species or whatever that's not your own?
It's like a vending machine. You don't know. Hi, baby.
Hi. Becker, do you say hi?
Oh, what an adorable child. How old is he now?
He's 13 months.
Okay, so he's like
Wait,
learning
can
how
you
to
say
talk.
hi? Can you say hi to my friends? Can you say hi, Gregory? No, you just want to look?
Oh.
There you go.
Hey.
Hi, Gregory.
Hey. Yeah, that's Sam and Eli.
We're gonna get takeout.
Mommy.
Time for diaper change.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question then about anthropology and like when do you like how long do you have to be part of a group before you really understand it, and how will you ever know?
When do you come out of the bushes? Like, when do you take off the camouflage? And a metaphor I thought of is like society is like a vending machine. You go to Japan and the street, or Tokyo specifically, and it's the cleanest city in the world, and they have vending machines with like clean panties for girls who are out clubbing and stuff, literally. And how does it work? It's machinery, and you don't see it because it's behind a case. You know what I mean? Society can be like a vending machine. Like, you just press the right buttons, put in some coins, and like clean panties come out. Literally.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I will never forget like the headline that I saw about the vending machines in Tokyo. You know, it's not something you forget about.
I will not, probably not forget that either. I don't.
Do you have any thoughts?
Some of the conversation in ethnographic research is about, participant researchers and immersing yourself in community, but you're always a participant observer, so there's that distance.
Right.
And I don't think that our main character, even the envoy that came in before, even though they were, enculturated and everything, could really understand what was going on in the society, having not being born into it. Although I will argue also that Native people in the society don't always know how it works.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. Like, there's plenty of people who
Yes.
are not part of the higher order of government or whatever. They don't have any idea that all this stuff is going on behind the scenes.
You have to have
Although I
security
think-
clearances.
Yeah, I think more of them understand it than maybe the government wants to believe that they do, because I think people to some level know that their communication is being censored or monitored, or but everyone just kind of goes along with the idea that the government has everybody's best interests in mind. And
Especially if you're a government employee, you sign contracts and paperwork about like you're gonna have to like see some sensitive information, and you can't tell anyone. Like, even if you're just a like a clerk in a government office, you'll still have to sign release forms. It's like HIPAA, but for government.
yeah,
Sensitive information about citizens, addresses, like the very like micro things to the macro things, and even in the other order, like, what do you consider micro, like my address, or is that a macro because you could Google it? You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like, I live in one house and on one street, and that's a micro concept. But like, you can Google my name, and you can find like 2 Instagram profiles, or like 3 Instagram profiles that I've had in the past. You know what I mean? That's
Happening.
yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to tackle the second question?
Sure, yeah. Let's talk about
All the gender things.
gender identity.
One of the blogs that I was reading talked about how most of the conversation around this novel revolved around the ideas of the ideas of gender identity and how that aspect of the novel went. and less so on the politics, which I thought was.
Yeah, I think that I saw that in some of the reviews as well, which I thought was really interesting because, like, I just saw that as part of the world building, but people thought that that was, like, the core point of the book, I guess, was this idea about gender.
Well, it's in the like it's they blurb it on the back, So like,
Here's
I,
that.
well, no, but I'm saying so if you happen to get a library copy that's got text on the back, then that's I mean because the text on the background and the flap whatever it tends to direct readers, I think, in a certain way in terms of how what they focus on in a novel.
That's why I don't read blurbs. They create a bias in my subconscious when I'm reading a book, basically. That's why I avoid previews as much as I can of movies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Same reason. And I think you're probably right, Eli, that if people are conditioned to think that's the point of the book. But I think that's probably included in the blurb because that's like the most interesting thing to draw people in is like, how do you have a society where there is no gender? There's no gender. Everyone can be either gender.
And they have no choice in the matter either.
When was the book published? Was it like the 80s or the?
69.
Okay. Because back then, like, like a lot of people think that gender is a binary thing, and sex is the binary. Is it the opposite? I cannot keep them straight.
You're right. That sex is generally considered to be a binary because
yeah,
the majority of people.
And it's a concept people can't grasp, and I can't even grasp it sometimes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely written. The society in this book is still by gender. Like, there's two genders, but that anybody can become one or the other in each sexual cycle, I guess.
Okay, that's really interesting, actually, because it's not out of the realm of what modern medicine can do in certain situations if you have enough money today. You know what I mean? If your insurance is good enough.
Well, it actually it doesn't really work like that. It's like
like in the novel, you go through cycles.
Yeah,
that's cool. I don't know. Like, I'll have to read it.
Essentially, and she used, and the word has fallen out of favor, but she used the word hermaphrodite. Like, so the way it works is I think they have both, and then once what is it called, Chemer? They're in this cycle.
Yeah, so in the first phase of when they're seeking a sexual partner, and then they become one or the other.
Mm-hmm. And yeah.
They're kind of like born intersex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. And they can both, but like fully, most intersex people can't like carry a child if they have.
Right, because most intersex people, their doctors force their parents to choose a gender for them.
Well, that's part of it as well. But in this case, they're fully capable of both impregnating someone and becoming pregnant throughout their life.
Interesting.
And I think and like it might have been really subtle, but I think there is like something very powerful to the people in the society of carrying a child. There was one character who said that had sired 4 but never like actually birthed one and was not very happy about this.
He was called his landlady because they were so feminine in his view of it, but so he said, how many children have you had, which in that society, in their language, meant how many have you carried, and the landlady said none, but I've sired 4. And so he was disappointed about that.
That makes sense because like when people announce their pregnancies or even their adoptions, we're having a baby, well, the biological mother is having the labor, like she's going through the pregnancy.
Well, yeah, and
How do you like? You have a baby, but do you really possess a baby? That's-
in this society, the kind of what do you call it? Inheritance or descendancy. I don't know what the term is. It's through the mother, because or through the
the carrier.
the carrier. So that it's considered a child of the flesh if it's the one that you carried, and that's like your
Okay.
inherit from you, as opposed to the children that you sired.
And then it's also collectivist, right? So they take all of the kids, and the kids are essentially reared by a quarter to a third of the percent of the population, right?
Oh.
I couldn't remember. Was that in Carhide as well? Was that in the whole planet, or was that just?
It might have just been in the O place.
Yeah, I think
I think it was Orgeran. Orgeran.
Yeah, the very orderly society. I think that was it. And so then when the king, so the king has sired several children, but then when the king becomes pregnant, it's a big deal because that will be the actual heir to the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Because it's his genes.
It's a
Like,
child.
yeah.
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 Okay, so this I found interesting. The whole concept of the pronouns.
I was just gonna ask you about that. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. It's a really interesting topic of conversation in today, because there's like actual like Switzerland or wherever actually has the official third pronoun.
Yeah, a couple of countries have a
Yeah, like neutral.
Yeah, and well, Meryl's here.
Meryl!
All right, the gang's all here.
Hey!
Traffic was a nightmare, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Took like an hour longer than I thought.
Oh.
Okay, you made it.
Hello, Meryl. I have not talked to you since the last hangout I've been, that I hung out at. I guess I don't even. It was Wonder, wasn't it?
Possibly last time you were here. Yeah, it's been a while.
That was a while ago.
Meryl, did you get a chance to read the book?
Not all of it.
Some of it? Eli read 2/3 of it.
I am about halfway.
And-
Okay.
Okay, so halfway through, and we'll get back to the pronouns in a minute.
Yeah.
Halfway through, what are your thoughts?
Me?
Yeah, because you're the one who just got here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to also overview of what you guys thought too. I really liked the introduction. Can I just say that? That's my favorite part so far. The introduction I thought was bomb in my book. I don't know if everyone has the introduction.
The 1976 introduction to the reprinting.
No.
I don't know, I have this one.
Published in 1969, so I didn't get the introduction.
Okay, well, if you ever find one with an introduction, I thought it was brilliant.
Okay.
But I had a hard time getting into it in the beginning because I kept getting everything confused. I had no idea who anyone was. And the gender thing, I understand it and I think it's great, but, I kept not being able to, grasp who is who because they would also use pronouns, which confused me a lot, too.
I have the hardest time when people use it and they and shit, and I'm not following along with the. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the sandwich or the car? I've had this conversation over and over again with just objects, and people aren't objects,
Well, but they use the male pronouns, almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Okay. Meryl, I haven't read the book at all because the library was closed on Friday. I haven't been able to get a hold of a copy, but I find the plot line very interesting. So keep talking, Meryl. What else do you think?
I don't know. I liked the foretellers a lot. I thought that was cool. Also strange. I like it. I like it more as I read it. I didn't finish it is because I kept picking up and being like, I don't feel like this. And it hurt my brain. And also, I was in Australia for a lot of the time I was supposed to be reading it. And
Oh, did we lose you?
warm, and they were talking about winter. Other than that, like, I think I like it more as I read it. I think I'll definitely probably finish it in the next day or two.
I'm in the same place as you. Well, I mean, not in the book, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna finish it next in the next day or two. I think there's 100 pages left.
Yeah, I'm with that with the winter. The last Lunar Chronicles book. Like, I bought this the day it was released, and I'm in this third chapter. Like, I'm gonna finish it eventually. Some books are
Yeah.
like that, you know.
I definitely like this one more the more that I read it. Like the more that I figure out what's going on,
Read.
the more that I like the themes of it and the characters and yeah.
Well, like you said, it was the sixth book in the series.
Well, yeah, but it's the sixth book is set in a specific world, so it's not from what I understand.
Yeah.
All
I
of
don't-
the other books don't take place
The same
in
character.
on the same planet, and there's not the same characters. I think there's, from
It's
what I was
just-
reading, there's one character who appears in like the other stories, but it's not a linear progression of story.
Got it. So it's like the Chronicles of Narnia. Kind of.
Yes.
What I know of those, yes.
Kind of.
Also, if I don't respond, it's weirdly cutting out, usually right as Pam talks.
Okay. Yeah. So my understanding of the use of the male pronoun was that was the translation of what was otherwise a neutral pronoun in their language, the Gethanian language, or I guess the Karhadian language and the Orgonian language. That was a translation choice, is the way that it was framed, to translate, to treat everyone as if they were male.
Which is interesting.
Yes.
I'm gonna turn down the HD on my. There we go. That might limit the like interaction with my
It's probably just my computer, but it happens to me whenever Pam talks.
I'm on a brand new laptop and I'm not, like, Google keeps changing things and I'm not very familiar with Hangout in general, so
It's all good.
it's like brand spanking new laptop. Smells new, still smells new.
So on like androgyny and pronouns, what I think is really interesting in terms of the choice made by the translators.
Right.
A lot of what I hear from like trans people on Tumblr, which is where I hang out, is that a lot of the time, androgyny is associated with more masculinity than it is with femininity.
Yeah.
So it seems like that was the concept then, and said concept is still being reinforced now.
Mm-hmm. I think it also is related to the time period in which this was written and the fact that some of what, like, I think they is considered probably our most acceptable singular gender-neutral pronoun that we have, and that definitely was not considered acceptable when this was written. And I think that at that time he was still considered to be a kind of neutral pronoun, like if you were saying everybody get out his book, like that was considered to be the neutral standard. So that's the context in which this is written.
Yeah.
I think that probably an author today would make a very different choice, but I could be wrong. I mean, it may be intentional to highlight the kind of what am I trying to say? Like when he's talking about like the king and then saying the king is pregnant. Like, that's supposed to be disorienting to the reader because we want to think about this person as male. But is that because the king was introduced as a king as male, or because we, as a society, think about a singular monarch as being male, and then for that person to be pregnant is what's disorienting? So I don't know how much of that was the context of the historical context or the author's intentional choice to make everyone male, unless otherwise specified, I guess.
Hmm.
No, that's interesting. Like, just the idea of, like, the intentional, like, the jarring nature of the juxtaposition of these ideas. So you have a male pregnant person.
Right.
That would definitely draw more attention to it. Like, it would really force readers to sit with that discomfort.
Yeah.
In a way that having everybody labeled there, everybody use the pronoun she, would not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm following along, like, but I'm not following along.
All good. And
Well, I think part of it is the narrator's perception. So the narrator is perceiving everyone as male most of the time, except when he's forced to remember that people are not male, that they're androgynous, or that they can become female. So he thinks about Estraven as male until he's forced to confront that Estraven is not male in the same way that he is male, and that there are important differences because of that. And so I think that was also part of the reason for that choice.
Meryl was muted.
So, yeah, she said she had problems with her volume.
Oh. Is that like a... I don't know, some technology sometimes really boggles my mind. Like, why not you work? Like, just work, laptop, like, or whatever she's using.
yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Okay, one of the questions I am very interested in, but I don't think anybody else has got to this point in the book, so we cannot talk about it.
Well, okay, so why not just, like, throw it out there, and then we can make predictions.
Okay. So I don't think... I don't know if Meryl can hear this at all, but I don't think either of you guys are up to the point where they are on the ice, Genly and Estraven, crossing the ice. So there's a long stretch period where they're just... Genly's rescued from the forced labor camp, and then they have to travel like 100-some miles over the glacier, camping together. And so during that point, obviously based on the cycles, Estraven goes into Kemmer and is basically like, I can't touch you, like I don't want this to happen. And Genly says in its narrative, like, this, if we had had sex, this would have made us alien to each other again. Like, we got to a point where we were friends, and then if we had had sex, that would have made us strangers to each other again. Yeah, that was super interesting. And so one of the questions on here is, how do you think the story would be different if A and Estraven consummated their relationship when Estraven was in Kemmer?
I'm gonna have to read this book.
Yeah, I'm at the point
right
where, like, right after A is rescued.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to speculate on that one though.
Yeah.
I saw that question. I was like, okay. Well, and you know, it was one of those. So they're coming out of the camp, and I'm like, oh, okay. So at some point, this thing could happen.
Yeah, and I had that same thought, and I Yeah, I really didn't know how she was going to handle that, and I thought that was an interesting, not just interesting narrative choice, but interesting reflection that the narrator then had on why they, why they wanted to be friends, not lovers, even though they oddly had that opportunity.
Well, and I think part of the really interesting thing about that entire situation is, so when she's explaining, when it's being explained earlier in the book about the whole cycles of Kemer and how, I suppose, intense it can be, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
Uh, then and then to and that compared to um, A's like inability to really understand how they can not have sexual desire the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And so there's this juxtaposition there, and then when I'm having problems with people's names right now. So Estroven is in Cameron. It's like, okay, so you know this thing could happen, but just the way that not so cycle as opposed to perversion is, I think, what they called it in their society.
Yeah, so if somebody is perpetually in Kemer, which is how they view Henry A, is like he's always a male, so he's a pervert because he's always in Kemer. Um, and yet, what's interesting is that it seems like it's natural that when somebody is in Kemer that they find a partner, they copulate. Like that's just expected every single cycle, and that it's not considered promiscuity. It's not considered, there's no like, I don't know, morals, I guess, attached to that. There is the like Kemer house, and then some people look down on the Kemer houses, but other than that, like it's just expected that you, when you're in Kemer, you find a partner, and then if it produces a child, then that's a child of your flesh or not. That's all that matters. So, oh, I see Meryl is saying something, but I can't hear.
Put it in the chat.
No, no.
It's like we're all watching her type intensely.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that.
If you're pregnant, you're sterile. Yeah. Like the guy in the at the, what do they call it? The place where they do the foretelling.
That's right.
The fastness. The fastness they had. Let's see. They had the guy who was. They had to have one. They have to have somebody in Kemer or just somebody who is a pervert. Oh, they have to have a pervert, but some of them artificially are not in a normal person. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, the 3 to 4% of adults may be physiological perverts or abnormals. Normals, by our standard, they are not excluded from society, but they are tolerated with some disdain. The Carhydric slang for them is half-deads. They are sterile. One in Kemer and one pervert. Oh, yeah. In the fact.
So, wait. Darn.
So if you're in Kemer, you're sterile, and if you're pervert, you're
just
like
all the time.
If you're a pervert, which is somebody who's in Kemer all the time, then you're sterile.
oh, okay.
Most people are only in Kemer for a small period of time when they are fertile.
Oh, that's really interesting. Just thinking about like Le Guin, like outlining this like her novel. Like I can imagine like pages and pages of like ideas written.
Hmm.
No, seriously. I just keep forgetting. I don't even know. Oh. So, is it? Did I understand correctly that like once you go through Kimmer with somebody, you can't go through Kimmer with them again?
No, only if it's your full sibling.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then my question is moot.
Okay.
I misunderstood. So, well, because that would change. I mean, that would make the answer to that question really really obvious.
Oh, here, Meryl. Question.
Uh,
I'm off.
because
Wait, who? What did Jess say?
no.
Meryl.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm.
Yeah, so I sent her the questions in the chat. One of the questions is, it says, this is about the introduction, which I don't have. Le Guin warns against seeing the book as predictive or prescriptive, which I'm like, I would not see it as either, but...
Right. Well, I think she was commenting on the larger of science fiction, because typically that's how, like, oh, well, typically science fiction takes an issue and, like, takes it to an extreme and extrapolates. So if we continue doing X thing, here's what's going to happen in the future, and here's the story.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of science fiction as, or like this type of science fiction as predictive of what's going to happen or prescriptive of what will happen if we continue to engage in the same behaviors. So she's saying, okay, so don't do that with this book because that was not my intent. We've had conversations about authors' intent before.
Yeah.
So she's telling us this is not what my intention is.
Yeah, which I would be amazed if somebody thought that they could take that away from this book. Like, oh yeah, this is clearly what's going to happen in the future. That Earth is. I mean, it seemed like they came to the conclusion in one of the like reports that somebody from Earth probably set up this colony on Gethin that with these like weird agender individuals or whatever. This book is not extrapolative. If you like, you can get a lot of other science fiction thought it's going. Yeah.
Kind of like Schrodinger's cat. Which I think she makes reference to as a thought experiment.
So it's kind of like a coincidence that like, yeah, that she writes about gender not being binary, but and it just coincidentally like
Well, it is
became
binary.
a thing.
It is binary. It's just not.
It's
set.
yeah, sex.
No, it's not. No, it's not set in an individual the way that it is.
Yeah.
In every well, basically.
I'm gonna have to read this book.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting question because I was like, I would be amazed if somebody walked away from this book being like, oh yeah, this is either what we're headed towards or what we should totally do in the future because.
Right? It'd be interesting evolution and like gender queers unite.
Yeah, it makes me think of how far human evolution is going to go. Like, are we devolving actually? Because like, there's so much disease in the human race because of like just like accidents when we're being born. Like my hoop sac was broken when I was born, and I developed pneumonia, so my left eye is legally blind. Like, you know, like I don't know, like if like the deprivation of oxygen when I was born led to the my eye, but shouldn't we be better at being human by now. Does that make sense? Like,
Well,
so, like, are we devolving? Like, evolution
medicine.
in the novel led to their sexuality being um, like kind of like a intersex, but what does that say about the state of our biology?
I don't think
In
it does anything, and I think that's the point.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, here is this alternate way of being. Chew on it for a minute.
Right, exactly. But I think she uses that to speak to things that are true in our own world, our own society, as far as we were talking about the anthropological
Hmm.
aspects of how can you ever become an insider into a society you're not born
hmm
into, and the whole thing about transparency of government, like all of that is very applicable, and I don't think that you have to see this as futuristic in any way to get that.
mm. Yeah. It's a thought experiment.
Right?
Fabulous.
So one of the interesting, so Meryl was talking about the fastness and the foretelling and how they say like, you know, like, the whole point of it is like you realize what questions are not worth asking or something along those lines, or that having these answers is not really doesn't really get you anywhere. So that made me think like, as far as our narrator is concerned, is that really true? Like at the end of the day, does it not really matter if Geffen joins the cumin? Because that was his whole question. Is like basically, is my mission going to succeed or fail? And they said it's going to succeed. It's like, was that the wrong question? Like, did he miss the point, or does it really not matter if they join this alliance or not? I don't know. I just wondered what the point was of both, including this whole thing about how it doesn't really matter, and that it just teaches you that you don't need, like, you don't want the answers to the questions you think you want the answers to, and then also being like, here's his question and here's the answer. Like, what are we supposed to do with that? I don't know if anybody.
I'm thinking about supper now. It's like 9 to 5 on the East Coast, so I think I'm gonna have to say goodbye. I get very hungry at 5 o'clock. Like it's my
Do what you need to do.
yeah. It was nice seeing all of you, and I'm just gonna go eat some pudding or something.
All right.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'll talk. I will. We're reading Cold
Cold
Sassy
Sassy
Tree.
2.
Okay, cool. It sounds interesting. I will talk to you guys later. It was nice seeing you. Bye.
Okay. I see you, Meryl. Um, do they talk at all about anybody going to uh going to the fastness and asking the right question? Because they do spend a lot of time asking the wrong questions or questions that are vague, and how being vague begets like vagueness in terms of answers.
Right.
And maybe the point is that his whole mission doesn't matter, and he's on his own journey, and that's really the point.
That's kind of what I was wondering. Yeah. Anything about that?
Try right-clicking on your volume settings and seeing if your master volume is turned down for your microphone in your taskbar. Probably if you're on a PC, bottom to the right.
Meryl's probably on Mac. Yeah.
Oh, are you in a Mac? We're getting some kind of sound because you
Yeah.
pop up in the center.
That's weird.
Okay, so you want system settings up in your Apple menu, up to the left, your system settings, and then there's a microphone button. You can turn your microphone up there. I usually have to turn mine down because I get loud and blow at everybody's speakers.
Can you hear me at all?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear
There you
you.
go.
Yay. Now you can talk.
That's okay, I didn't do anything.
That's okay. Okay, so go ahead, ramble away.
I didn't really
Yeah,
have
yeah.
anything particularly to ramble about because I was trying to like gather my thoughts about what you were saying quick enough to type them before you changed topics.
Okay. Talk about the book club on live or off?
Off live.
Off air.
Okay.
That's it.
So, do we?
I wanted.
You had,
I thought the question about whether or not you found like Carhide or like which one you found more alien was interesting.
Yeah.
Which society do you find more quote unquote alien?
Oh, I mean, I would have to say Carhide because it's more of a
Androgynous.
monarchy and titles and things like that. Whereas
it might be easier to identify with Mob Run.
well, yeah, I mean the other one is, even though it's run, by the Soph, it's has government bureaucracy and committees and things that are more familiar, I guess, to our world.
That's true. Unless you live in Chicago, then you're just snowed out all the time.
Oh, but so you can identify with that bit too, right?
Yeah.
So if you go outside, are you cold?
I am cold. It's not snowing today though.
I really liked that aspect of the book with all the descriptions about the world and how cold it was and how he could just like never get warm.
I've been watching Game of Thrones and it reminded me of like the North by the wall.
Hold on, I gotta plug this in. It's gonna die.
I'm not a Game
It just
of Thrones
reminded me of
watcher, no
Chicago and
context.
when I lived in Chicago and how much I hated the cold.
I just got back from like 100-degree weather. I got off the plane and I was like ready to get straight back on the plane. I was like, I don't even care that I've been on a plane for 2 days. I'm ready to be on a plane for 2 days to go back.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have anything else like super. I feel like the book has like some really good questions, but I also feel like it goes in depth on a few topics, and it's not a very long book. And then there's not a lot to talk about. Like, it's interesting to think about and delve into those, but I feel like it only like skims the surface of like, what if this were the case? And then like from there, it just kind of provokes thought to reflect on more than it does like a lot of delving in to dissect the book itself.
Well, you're only halfway through.
There's that too. But isn't that what a thought experiment is supposed to do?
Yeah.
Provoke thought.
No, I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying like
Okay.
that's why I don't have a ton to talk about right now is because I feel like a lot of the ideas have been discussed.
Well, we can set up a thread on the Facebook page, and we can talk about it when we're done.
Yeah, you should, because there are definitely other things to talk about that happen closer to the end of the book and decisions that the characters make. But
I already spoiled myself just in case, so I was like, well, if they've all read it, I might as well spoil myself in death by reading a summary of it, so it's fine. I'm still gonna read it. I still want the descriptions.
Yeah.
So.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, are we done with talking about this one then?
I think so.
Okay.
Cold Sassy Trees next.
Yay.
I'm gonna stop the broadcast, and then we can have a chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.